Hey, and welcome back to All Aware. I am Nathan Roshawn, and tonight we are going to head into Night Watch, Echo Hotel's channel, to team up with him and interview SG Anon. SG Anon is a geopolitical analyst. I don't think he's ever really taken on that title, but that's what I call him. He has a lot of different mindsets and ways and avenues of looking at information and determining uh, how everything fits together into like a picture or a puzzle. And so this episode, we're going to get a little geopolitical. We're going to get into some conspiracies and some things and some thought frames that are not, I guess, more recently they are pretty much on point with everything that's going on. It's been very strange the last few years. A lot, I would say about half or more of the country realizes there's corruption, there's fraud, there's all kinds of things. They may not know why, the reasoning behind why these things are happening, but they know something is not right. And there are things happening that, need to be addressed, need to be changed. And some of us know that this is a spiritual battle that we have been in more recently. It's really been going on for a very, very long time, but it's been overtly shown recently, and there's no really coping mechanism. There's no way to kind of reel people into a certain framework, a set standard reality that we can all build from. Then you start getting chaos, and then when you have certain people that do not understand the plights and um, the struggles and hardships of another set of people, for instance, people who may have been born into multi-million dollar families and have always had everything they needed, and then most of the times everything they wanted. They're not going to understand, they've never placed themselves in situations where they understand the majority of the world population, which comes from either middle class or lower economical standards or impoverished standards, where they had to work for everything that they came from, and they had to develop the skills that they have, and they had to go through trials and tribulations and struggles to find a happy medium or a happy place in life where they can exist. So there's that dynamic. There's the education system being lied to for hundreds of years. More, if you want to go more recent, all the generations that are living today have been lied to about how society operates, how the laws and the orders and the regulations and the freedoms that come with our uh, us as living beings being in a society, especially here in America and in first world countries. We have a little more freedoms and different things that we enjoy, and we've been lied to about where those came from, how those came about, and then you're also lied to about, how to get that back and how to overcome struggles and things like that. And you're being pitted against other sections of people that necessarily you shouldn't be sectioned off from, or you shouldn't be pitted against, because everybody in the world is looking for the same thing and wants the same thing. We all want to have a purpose. We all want to have uh, an enjoyable life, whatever that may be to that individual. Some people want to work a fulfilling job. Others want to travel their whole lives. And visit different places. There's other people who want to build things, companies, build real estate, build families and things like that. So it all comes down to all this stuff that has been happening. Now we have the forest fires out in California right now. We've had drones, we've had terrorist attacks, all within the first 10 days of the year 2025. And some would say it's just coincidental, or it's copycat stuff, or it's just people, just the news sharing different things at one time that they typically maybe didn't share, and other times, you have that where the media might focus on certain things. Historically, we know forest fires happen all the time, all year round in certain parts of this country and in this world. Right now, actively, there is forest fires in every single continent, except for Antarctica and Greenland and stuff like that. There are forest fires active in every single continent on planet Earth right now. So we know that they happen a lot all the time, sporadically. But is there certain things happening that are different with this one? Is this a mixture of foul play and nature? That's something to think about. But anyways, tonight we're going to bring on SG Anon and get some of his feedback and some of this stuff that's been going on with the natural phenomena, with the presidential election and the inauguration that's coming up here. And is that going to happen? Is it not? Are they pushing it off? I don't know. Everything's up in the air right now. But stay tuned. We're going to be right back. I'm going to be with Echo Hotel and his Night Watch channel. And together we're going to interview SG Anon here on All Aware. Take care. We'll be right back.
Dim lights flicker in the studio glow. Voices echo where the mystics flow. Spirits whisper in digital air. Tune in now if you dare. Aliens talk through untold night. Conspiracies hidden from blinking sight. Secrets murmur like an old affair. Dive in deep if you care. Is it a time you became all aware? Unlock the truth if you really dare. With HB, let your mind declare the mysteries we share.
All right, welcome to another episode of Night Watch. I am joined by co-host Nathan Roshawn, and today we have a special guest again. We haven't had SG on in over a year, but he is going to come back on and give us an update and talk about state of things going on in the world and what he sees coming and what a few other things. So I'm going to turn it over to Nathan right now, and he can say a few words, and then we'll bring SG in.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to see you over there on the Night Watch channel. And for those of you watching on All Aware, thanks for tuning in here with myself and Echo Hotel, who's out there on the West Coast. So yeah, we're gonna get into some stuff with a very analytical guy. He's got a lot of views in the alternative media world. He's made his way around a lot of podcasts, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of podcasts and different media appearances at this point. And he seems to, in my opinion, he has a very good way of expressing things. And they seem to, a lot of the stuff he said seems to make sense and has come to fruition, I guess. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I'm excited too to be here. Thanks for having me on here, Echo, and I guess we can bring him in. Hey SG, are you there, sir?
10-4. Thank you very much for your patience. It is appreciated.
Hey, so thank you again for joining us. It's been over a year since we had you on the show, and Nathan and I were just talking about. It's been what, 2 years, over 2 years since you first came on the scene.
It has. We're running right around 2.5 years now at this point, gentlemen.
I was looking back, and I know I started listening to you, I think about episode 17 that you were putting out on your show, and I've noticed that you're doing interviews now also, and you're also doing interviews or you're doing them in Spanish. How's the Spanish one working out?
I have to be honest with you, gentlemen. I was surprised at how positively received the Spanish translations were from the Spanish-speaking community. Last I checked, the first translation that we put out, which was just of audio file one way back in the day, in the very beginning, garnered around 60,000 views. I can go in and actually see on Rumble how many of those views came from unique IDs. The unique IDs was right around 48,000. So, number of those were multiple reviews, perhaps multiple listen backs. It's really hard to say. But fundamentally, there's been a great reception to the content and the material, essentially of everything on Q News Patriot over these last couple of years, which I'm honored for and I'm flattered by. And I can't give any credit, of course, to myself for that because it's a God thing in the very end of the day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, you're doing great work out there. We appreciate you coming on. For you guys who haven't maybe watched one of our episodes before, SG has been on the scene being very open-minded and very has had some thought-provoking analytical responses to a lot of the things that are going on. We are in a type of warfare that is very covert and very hidden, and it takes a lot of kind of analytical thinking, critical thinking, and kind of piecing things together. In SG, we think you do an amazing job at that, and I appreciate you going on all the shows that you have and coming on this one to help us share some of this and try to figure out where we're at, where we're going, and what we need to do to collectively get there. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. You honor me.
So, if we can, I kind of wanted to. I had a direction I wanted to go, but if you could just kind of give us an update from your point of view on where we're at and where we're going. I mean, I'm on the West Coast, so I'm about an hour from Los Angeles, so I'm dealing with the fires. I know we had the Carter funeral. I have questions about that, about Melania's dress, whether Carter has even been alive up until this point. And so if you could just give us an update on where you see things are and how they're going, that would be great.
Yeah, let's not forget about the attacks that have happened too. All this has happened in the first 10 days of
Yeah.
2025. So, what's your rundown on
Indeed.
that?
Indeed. Well, my rundown, I guess, on it at the end of the day would be that we are now entering the racketing phase, right? This is the death thrash. This is the shaking of the tree. This is the point where the eye wall hits the palms on the beachhead, and they have to, stand up against the strongest part of the coming storm. So moving through early 2025, we've seen all these events. My landscape on this is probably going to come from a foreign perspective and how that informs what's going on in the U.S. right now. I try to balance those two a lot because it's such a worldwide coordinated effort that's happening. So essentially, I guess what I'm going to give you as far as my rundown is a little bit of an overview of what's about to come out with File 87. We have a lot of coordinated military activity and State Department statecraft activity. We'll call those the deep state statecraft activities that are sort of coming to a head in South America, in Eastern Europe, and Southeastern Europe. We have a potential nuclear trafficking pathway opening up through a group called Bulgaria Energy Holdings and a new contract that they have entered into actual implementation of now at the kinetic level with a group called IP3 Corporation. IP3 Corporation is essentially a military industrial institution. It's created to further the agenda of the military industrial and profiteering complex. All of the individuals that are associated with the governance board of IP3 Corporation are either associated with the U.S. State Department, foreign state departments, the U.S. military, or big banking systems, think HSBC and Chase Bank and others. So, looking at this and that landscape that's happening there, looking at what's happening in the Baltic states, Estonia just yesterday, made an announcement that they're attempting to close the border with Russia. A parliamentarian introduced a bill to do that. The bill's probably going to receive overwhelming support. Russia has already premeditatively removed the buoys out of the border river that runs there in that area. And, for whatever reason, probably to make way for an amphibious access point, but that would just be speculation on my part. And then again, in addition to this, gentlemen, we've got South America, we've got China, Japan, Africa, there's a tremendous amount happening in Africa right now with the U.S. military. The commanding general for U.S. AFRICOM visited and had a face-to-face, off-camera, off-air private conversation with the commanding general of U.S. Army Joint Task Force Horn of Africa in September, on the same day that Biden extended Executive Order 13848, I believe. Don't quote me on that. It was one of the executive orders extended, the 9th of September, 9/9, which is the inverse, of course, of 66. And that's an interesting, parallel just from a symbological standpoint. And then now, just a couple of months later, we have Somalia completely reversing a more than 15-year position with respect to Ethiopian troops operating on the border and on the Somali side of the border. We have very unusual reports coming out of Ethiopia showing geological activity on the ground literally bubbling, but there's no volcanic activity recorded at the same time, which indicates some sort of underground heating source, perhaps a breakdown of a magma chamber in response to changes in the shifting, dirt layers. I'm not a geologist, but that's just my speculation. But a reasonable possibility with that, in my opinion, considering that that same commanding Marine Corps general also visited Ethiopia, has also put out a statement saying that we cannot normalize diplomatic relationships with Ethiopia at the present time. I think they're telling us that there's an active underground military operation there happening under the Horn of Africa, and that we're moving the needle forward with either reclaiming or destroying some enemy fort, some underground system. We know that these underground systems that exist all across our continental shelves are used for them to hide weapons and wealth and a great deal of technology and things like that. So this is a really big rundown to come back around to where does that leave us here in America as we look at 113 through 120 in this 7-day period, which is certainly going to get very interesting moving towards that 20th date. I think that we're moving towards a period of time here in the United States where there is a expanded national emergency style jurisdiction that may highlight Trump as a brand new president or president-elect, as being a commander-in-chief that needs to respond to a militarized threat to the nation. J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect, is not attending the inauguration ceremony. A number of different information dissemination reports are putting out suggestions that there's an event coming for the inauguration. I said almost 90 days ago that a Washington, D.C. mass casualty event was likely in this process, because we have to lay the framework to activate something called EO 13224. And that's an extremely important document. It's a 23 years long national emergency that effectively sequestered a great deal of the Bill of Rights, turned off the U.S. Constitution, suspended actual law of the land, habeas corpus, because it allowed for the domestic deployment of the U.S. Army under a national militarized emergency to fight terrorism, which was defined by the White House Legal Counsel and the Pentagon Legal Counsel less than a month and a half later as a military objective rather than a law enforcement objective, which allowed that executive order to stand over and supersedent to the Posse Comitatus Act of the late 19th century. So we have to conclude that national emergency, which means we need a visible event to come. The inauguration certainly makes perfect sense. I wouldn't rule out the week after the inauguration as well. The inauguration day may come and go, with relative ease. But regardless, with respect to all of this, we're moving into a 2025 for the ages. It's a symbolic year. It's 5 times 5. It's a square year. It's the last 3 quarters of this century, and we are now 24 years on, which is 12 plus 12 from those events of 2001 as we come into the autumn of this year.
That's what I was going to ask you. So that executive order would be aligned with the Patriot Act.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Yeah. EO, what was it? 3181.
EO 13224. I believe it was 9/23/2001 by George W. Bush.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So that would be aligned with the Patriot Act. So that's what it would take to remove that. Okay. I understand where you're going with that now. I hadn't heard that J.D. Vance was not attending that. That's
Yeah, he's going to be attending the Ohio State Buckeyes game, it sounds like, but I didn't know if that was a joke or if that was real, but he put that out on his social media that he wanted to attend that instead. So a lot of weird times and news and things going on. My only thing would be now trying to look at it with all the chaos and just the disinformation that's on both sides, all sides, is what how do we, make of what is going on? And I do know that in the fog of war, that, there's a lot of things that we're not going to know. But with that, I'd like to ask you, SG, about have you heard these testimonies and these different things about this strange fog that's going around? This is another thing. I know a person on social media who's actually collecting it and they're testing it. I haven't seen any results on that yet, but there's just so much strangeness going on right now. That was another thing that I didn't know if you had a take on.
Well, it's interesting. The fog issue and the general atmospheric modulation that's been going on for, right under our noses for decades, but under our aware noses just for these last few years or so. It's not as heavily researched as some of the other stuff I've been looking into, but from what I've found, I can say that it's a mixture absolutely of biological and radioactive elements. Those radioactive elements are in micro quantities likely to help facilitate it, thermal ignition. Um, and looking at what's happening in California, for example, and other very odd fires that have broken out, not in national forests and neighborhoods, but at certain plants and industrial outfits and things of that nature, it would make a lot of sense that you could, that something like that would be utilized for that vector. At the end of the day, what it amounts to really is an overt modulation of the natural balance of nature. And that's something that sort of deeply offends all humanity at a very visceral level, because this earth was made and gifted for us, and we were charged with taking care of it. And while we have different degrees of how extreme we like to be in that discussion, pretty much every single one of us is not planning on clear cutting rainforests and then poisoning the soil with peroxide. So looking at, what we're doing now with respect to or what's happening now, I guess is a better way to say it, with respect to the fogs coming out, a very unusual respiratory condition showing up underneath these fogs, at least some of them potentially related to what's going on in Southern California right now. I've seen a couple of very good breakdowns of laser activation in the atmosphere coordinating with artificially inflated wind currents and atmospheric drops coming out of Southern Nevada, which is the Area 51 base area, just for the audience out there. It very much appears that we've got a death knell operation going on behalf of actors who are attempting to make as much chaos as possible, likely also attempting to make the job of reconciling things on the other side clearly much more difficult. You still have human nature at play here, and that's why I tell people all the time, this is an active conflict. We took out a great deal of the command, control, and strategic planning structure during the Trump administration, number one, between 17 and 20, but this period of time has drawn out a great deal of what you would call middle management, and it's an active conflict with us and middle management about how we get control and what kind of control we actually leverage over all of our important pulpits, our societal arenas, our control of banking and commerce, our control of national security and foreign policy, our control of, the corporate government or maybe private public relationship is a better way to phrase that. So, it's a very long answer to the question to come back around, but the fog to me seems to be another niche down on that list of resistant actions of a dying beast that has now been stabbed so many times. It knows it's over, but we just haven't arrived at the loss of life moment yet.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's being seen all around the world in different areas. And when you get to a level where you see it all happening all over and in usually very first world areas of the world, and it's just very strange. And I think Echo, you would agree, and maybe you can talk on this because you're out there in Southern California. The way that this has come around with the fires out there is very unnatural. I was out there with you, a few months ago, traveling around, and it just doesn't seem like it is. I mean, you know, there's arsonists, they're copycats, like they say that happen, but this is, I think, beyond that too, to get that level of devastation. What do you think, Echo?
Well, right now we have the Santa Ana winds, which are blowing off the desert towards the ocean, and those don't typically pick up in California until the fall. So those are really early right now. And when you look at some of the research I've seen, they were spraying something over Area 51, and it was being allowed to follow those weather patterns down into California. The only other thing that I saw was and I've only seen satellite footage of this, but I don't know if it was real or not. But it showed that all three fires ignited at the same time, and
Yeah, I saw that.
they and then last night there was a fourth fire that was ignited up north of Los Angeles, in Oxnard, right along the water too. So there's guys. There was a video yesterday of a guy running around with a torch that was igniting Christmas trees that were in trash cans, and there was reports of another person running around dumping gasoline into sewers. So they are, in my opinion, and I want you to touch on this, SG. The LA is probably one of the biggest cities on the list for being a 15-minute city. And I had heard reports that they wanted to burn down 70% of LA County to, I guess, achieve that at some point. But I just don't know how they could. LA County's huge. I don't know how they could get that done. But what's your thoughts, SG?
Well, I guess my thoughts on the whole issue with respect to the WEF agenda and LA 2028 and then LA 2035. I think that we have a pretty obvious one-to-one correlation between what's going on the ground right now and at least some of these stated objectives. And I find that a little bit alarming, to be perfectly honest. At the same time, I think that with the establishment of the information war and just the absolute, unbelievable demolition salvo that we, the people, have taken to the mainstream legacy media complex, I don't think that those agendas have any more steam. A great deal of the steam behind them relied primarily on the public's ignorance to the actual causation, right? You can create tectonic events with some of the technology that the secret intelligence community has. You can certainly start, isolated and targeted thermal ignitions. We've seen that at least half a dozen times since 2018, just in the ones that the alternate media has talked about pretty publicly and public facing. But at the same time, I think it galvanizes the importance of why these conversations have to occur. If broadcasts like this were not possible or were not occurring due to the public's ignorance or the public simply being too busy with handling the everyday orders and business of life, 70% of LA County could be destroyed in one way or another. And we would all blame the weather patterns, or we would all blame nature, or we would all blame, the wrath of God or some sort of, entity or blame it, scapegoat maybe is the best way to say it, that would take our momentum out of it, because you cannot change certain things about that, right? But you can stop atmospheric modulation that galvanizes lower thermal ignition points. You can ensure that reservoirs of water are completely full and not drained. You can establish a seaway reservoir aqueduct system into that area so that there is always water available, so that it is not possible to run out of water. You can install desalination plants to completely eliminate the irrigation and water shortages along the Californian countryside, right? And so these are important contextual details when we look at what's happening on the ground. What's happening on the ground is evidence of a broader globalist agenda, but it is suggestive more deeply than even that agenda, that agenda is being carried out by technology that governments are in possession of that the people do not even know exist.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. And just to mention, we were talking about the smart cities. The top 12 include Fresno, California, Columbus, Ohio, Louisville, Kentucky, LaGrange, Georgia, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Miami-Dade County, Florida, and then there's also some other major cities in Texas, Illinois, and more California cities such as San Francisco and San Jose as well. So there's a lot of evidence there that could be part of what was going on.
So SG shifting gears here for a minute. I didn't get a chance to watch the Carter funeral. I only saw highlights. I was working, but I had heard that you were gonna do a play-by-play by it. What's your take on the Carter funeral and Melania's dress and Trump sitting next to people that we've talked about being dead for a while now?
Well, it's interesting. I want to preface the question or the answer here by saying that I attempted to watch that event live, but was unable to due to personal events. So what I've seen is after moments and the different events or the different clips that I've reviewed. I've not watched it in its entirety yet. But one of the things I've noticed in a couple of the clips that I've seen is President Trump's tie. I've actually not seen Melania's dress, to be perfectly clear here. I have been, pretty overwhelmed in some regards in a personal life capacity. We're just getting that back under control and on the wayside. But with respect to President Trump's tie, it was the same color tie that he had on when he told the journalist, I believe it was in 2019, in response to the question, "What storm, Mr. President?" He stated, "You'll find out." And he made the journalist ask the question 3 separate times, which I thought was very fascinating. So looking at that, the placement of him next to Barack Obama, the forensic lip reading report of President Trump and Obama exchanging a conversation where Trump says, "We'll have to find a quiet place after this and talk," or to talk, something along those lines. The fact that ISIS is now essentially in control, or a faction of ISIS is in control of the government in Syria and in the Syrian central countryside, the desert there. And of course, we're seeing a resurgence of extremism in that area coinciding in that same, general time frame. And Trump told us in 2016 that Barack Obama was the founder of ISIS and Hillary Clinton is the co-founder. And I tracked Hillary Clinton's shell company payments to a group in Syria back in 2019, I believe it was, when I finally found that information. And it was through a shell company in France and through another shell company out of Quebec, Canada. So, looking at this, the Carter funeral, the fact that there was a wrinkled flag, Carter sold the Panama Canal. I find it absolutely fascinating that less than 2 weeks prior to Jimmy Carter's death, President Trump reintroduces the Panama Canal as a major geopolitical consideration for the American audience. And then President Carter passes away. That timing is not, organic, I guess is the best way to say it by any means. And that ties back to your question a moment ago. The entirety of what's happening with the territorial discussions here, the reclamation discussions with the Panama Canal, this purchase of Greenland and things like that. President Trump telling us in a covert way that we're going to also incorporate Mexico into some sort of closer union status with the United States of America. We're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I think what we have being fleshed out here, quite frankly, if I may, and the Carter funeral being a big opening salvo in this, is a reorientation of certain arenas of the world that are essentially what you would call important choke points or important nodes or operational areas that can affect the security and and not only the military security, but the economic security as well of the entirety of the planet.
Yeah, he wished the troops of China who were guarding the canal, Merry Christmas, and then flew an American flag on a ship that was going through there. But so shifting gears again, not so much away from that, but Nathan and I were just having a conversation about Melania's dress, and from what I could tell, it had babies on it. But then Nathan was saying that it looked like it was JFK hugging somebody or hugging something. You wanna expound on that, Nathan?
Yeah, from what I researched and was able to see and zoom in and things, it did look like clearly to me that it was JFK hugging. I couldn't tell exactly what his arms were out. It looked like he was hugging something, and other people have said it was Junior. So that's what I saw. I mean, I guess. What did you say you saw, Echo? You
I
said
didn't
you
I didn't get a chance
babies.
to watch it,
Oh,
but when I tried to zoom in on the dress and when I looked at it, there were reports that there were babies on the collar. It was a very Puritan looking look and a very Puritan looking collar and dress. And she really didn't engage with anybody there. She just kind of sat by herself and didn't say a word. But the dresses, in my opinion, have always said have spoken volumes.
Yeah, it looked like it was interesting times for a lot of people that attended there. Did you happen to see that SG, the collar? Did you notice anything different about that? It was white with black graphics on it.
Well, that is very interesting, and I hadn't seen that. But white and black, and the patterning with white and black goes all of the way back to Alice in Wonderland. It shows up in a lot of different thematic elements with respect to the symbology that these people use. Bohemian Grove has, what appears to be white and black, tables out there, stone tables, white and black floor tiles, all in these different royals' mansions and different palaces and things of that nature. White and black inside very large basilicas that are known to have enormous tunnel systems beneath them. Lots of white and black present in Italy, the Rome area. And I could go on and on and on certain symbology with some of that, gentlemen. But suffice to say, and to your point a moment ago, despite my own ignorance at the moment with respect to Melania's dress, that dress has been utilized for very significant rally point and phase change communications all throughout this process. And we saw the Mar-a-Lago raid after a very unusual dress from Melania less than a week prior to that, or less than 10 days prior to that, excuse me. We saw a number of things happen with respect to the Madison Square Garden rally, and immediately after that, geopolitically around the world. And she wore a zebra-coated dress of, I believe it was white, black, and a little bit of gray in there. So suffice to say, we've got a tremendous amount happening right now out there in the world, and I'm extremely excited to see where we go, despite the fact that we have a little bit of turbulence still yet ahead of us.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Echo?
Yeah, definitely. Hey, so shifting gears real quick, I wanted to get your opinion, SG, on Q Drop 916. And if you don't remember exactly which one it was saving Israel for last. And I always had my own thoughts on that, but I've done some research over the last couple of days, and I was listening to a show, and the show started bringing up the Noahide laws last night and how they've been implemented. Carter, it was a proclamation under Carter, and then every president since Carter has signed them. And now they're in all 50 states, and the governors have done proclamations. And it just seemed like it kind of tied in with Carter, the Carter funeral, and the Noahide laws, and the fact that they're trying to implement them. And Trump, I guess what I wanted to ask you is what's your opinion of Trump at the wall during
The capitulation tour.
Yes, the capitulation tour. Thank you. And then his son-in-law Jared and his daughter being involved in the sect of that, and just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that particular Q drop, if you remember it, and the that kind of rode down the Noahide laws.
Well, I guess let me first start answering the question with the understanding that we have, in the form of the Trump family, a group that has been, just like the Kennedy family, at the very top of society for quite a long time. This family has been interdicted at different points by the club. The club has certainly tried to buy some of them off, marry into them. Infiltration, right? Q tells us over and over and over and over again, infiltration, not invasion, right? And infiltration, by the way, on that exact subject can work in both directions, in both ways. So, with my opinion on Ivanka and Jared, let's go there first, and then we can come back to the discussion about various what I believe to be national security issues behind certain state-based laws and things like that. We haven't heard basically anything from Ivanka Trump outside of a tweet or two over these last number of years, right? We see certain photos that are shared that seem pretty innocuous. We saw the Instagram post, "I love you, Dad," immediately after the assassination attempt this year. And Jared is being, he's sort of circulated around in the narrative space a few different times, but sort of, not in any significant enough fashion that I've been able to tell that seems to tie back to some sort of active ongoing situation. And that might just be my inattention to the matter in some regards. But with respect to the national security situation that is playing out regarding foreign capture of our institutions and our governments, regarding the appearance of maintaining, electability here in the United States with President Trump. You asked a moment ago about that, presence at the wall. This is the same guy that backed the Federal Reserve into the Treasury and took away the Rothschild family's ability to control and maintain secrecy behind that control with respect to the U.S., economic and financial landscape that opened them up essentially to Pandora's box, and the rest is history. Yes. So I wouldn't call that individual an ally of any secret society, any deviant ideology, or any foreign power built on either of those two above. I just don't see that, aligning those two interests, dovetailing with any sort of serious long-term benefit for both parties. There's only long-term benefit with one party with that, and that's with respect to President Trump and his electability here in the United States, right? The United States has been subjected to pretty aggressive military-grade psychological warfare and perception augmenting campaigns for over 50 years now. So when we look at our societal structures, which all reflect what our media tells us, which all reflects, back into the operations of certain things down on the ground, we're faced with a situation here very much that it's hard to sort of get our footing underneath us and see our correct orientation. And I forget the part of the question that you were asking about a certain Q drop. I'll finish this and then we'll segue into that for a moment. But with respect to, what President Trump is doing, I think that we fundamentally have a dynamic at play where President Trump is utilizing human selfishness to his advantage in every single way that he can possibly achieve. And some of that human selfishness is clouded by greed or clouded by ideology or religious zealotry, for example, or some sort of malicious or nefarious oath that can be taken advantage of if you're an individual that understands sort of how to play that 3D, 4D, 5D chess that people talk about and wage an espionage campaign against someone else.
Right.
Hey, let's go ahead and take a quick break right here. SG, appreciate you coming on and with the time here. We're just going to take a quick break and then we'll come back here right after this.
Thank you very much for having me, gentlemen.
You are watching and listening to the All Aware podcast. Like, follow, and subscribe wherever you are tuning into this episode. Help spread awareness. For more information about the show, visit the website at allawarepodcast.com.
We are the rulers of our own time. This is our life. Building a new world, we banish the dark. We are the rulers of our own time. This is our life. We're in a new world. We are the rulers. Brace for the countdown. Change change has arrived. The light's taken over the night. We fought and we conquered through blazes of fire. We claimed what we came for, with flames in our eyes. We are the rulers of our own time. This is our life, building a new world. We banish the dark. We are the rulers of our own time. This is our life. We're in a new world. We are the rulers. Together we rise. Together we fall.
You are watching and listening to the All Aware podcast on the Truance Network. Cut through the fluff. Get the truth. Back to the episode.
All right, welcome back. We are back with Nathan Roshawn. Unfortunately, SG Anon had to step out. He had an emergency, so we are going to continue the show and talk about a few of the topics that I had lined up.
Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. You had watched some guy that you had actually met. You were just telling me you had met him a few years ago.
Yeah.
The Patriot Street Fighter.
Scott McKay, the Patriot Street Fighter, down in San Diego. He was on his tour, and after the tour, he was doing pictures and whatnot, and got to hold the tomahawk. And it was back when we still didn't know what the hell was going on. We were all still confused. But he did a show the other day with Mike Jaco and Nino Rodriguez. And just dropped in the first 20 minutes, just dropped all kinds of bombs about a friend of his having dinner with one of Trump's advisors, and apparently there's 5 Trumps running around or 6 Trumps running around and 5 Bidens and
Central casting, all
3
that.
or 4 Hillarys. Yeah, and we've talked about it before. I believe most of that. Even Maria Bartiromo on her show with Trump 7 or 8 months ago said Gavin Newsom was central casting. So most of these people, I believe, have been taken out. So the Carter funeral, who knows who these people are? But one of the things that I will say is I've looked into Biden. And I can't find any real pictures of Biden. I used to think it was 2020 where I couldn't find any real pictures of Biden. And then I started looking deeper because I'm like, okay, wait a minute. The guy that they're portraying now, well, he was at the inauguration. And then the guy they're portraying now, he was at the funeral for Poppy Bush. And I'm like, okay, so how far back does this go? In my opinion, it goes back to the inauguration where Trump said we're giving power, taking power out of DC and giving power back to the people. Even at that point, it looked like the Joe that I saw was not the real Joe. So
Right.
he either died before then, they replaced him before then, or they took him out before then. But it's been this same Joe. And even Scott McKay said that he said I spent years in DC. I knew this guy. I spent time with him, and when I saw him on the screen, I was like, that's not Joe. What happened to the real Joe?
Yeah. I think either 3 things probably happened. I think, and not just with this guy Biden, but with Hillary and all these other things. I mean, you've seen the um, I don't know if it was called a Manchurian Candidate or whatever that's the right phrase, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, they were either taken out, eliminated, or I guess we have to say deleted. They were either jailed, imprisoned, or they're on some kind of house arrest, or they might be in hiding. But I agree that a lot of these people we see, even actresses and actors, aren't the people they were. I was just watching something, and it says J Lo was in it, and I was like, first of all, I was watching and I'm like, who is this person? Like, I mean, they're sort of attractive, right? But then I saw it said J Lo, and I'm like, who? Where is she? What actress is J Lo?
Hmm.
Whoever recommended the movie to me, I won't call him out, but he said it's the main character, it's the lady. I'm like, that's not J Lo, dude. And there's so many things. There are still some that you can see are really those people, and then there's a lot of them that are not. They just don't appear to be. Now, did they get some kind of freaky surgery and lose a bunch of weight and facial structure changed and all that? I don't think that's possible. I mean, we've been identifying bodies by facial bone structure and teeth and things for forever. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
I agree, man. Something has changed, and we know what was it in the 80s or the early 90s? I think we talked about this on an episode a while back years ago, but Dolly the sheep, and then there were soft disclosures saying that they were cloning animals and things. And then we also know from that CIA makeup artist that they have masks that really look like anybody, flesh. So I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, Echo. But I believe it all. I mean, it could be.
Well, I don't know if you saw Rogan this week with Mark Zuckerberg on Rogan, but um,
I didn't
those
catch
are
it.
those are two different people. It's a total different Zuckerberg. The guy's taller, his face is thinner, more hair. He looks totally different, and people are buying it. People are like, oh yeah, now he's for free speech, and I'm like looking at him like, really? This isn't the same guy.
Bait and switch. Yep. Yep.
So, and
There's
and not to go down this other rabbit hole, but I saw a video yesterday of Cat Williams calling out Jamie Foxx, and
hmm
he had two pictures of Jamie Foxx up there, and he said Jamie Foxx, um, uh, I hate to even go down this crazy ass road, but he said Jamie Foxx is cloned because one, Jamie Foxx was looked like Jamie Foxx, and the other Jamie Foxx had freckles and was light skinned.
Yep.
And it's like,
I
what's
saw that.
what's real? What the fuck is real?
Yeah, that's where we're at, man. Like, what is actually real, and what's not, and it's frustrating. For those that don't want to get into any level of depth with any of this stuff. I mean, I guess it's easy to just leave it alone, but when you've been following it like us for so long, and then some of the stuff that's going on, and then you see stuff like that, it's like, what's going on? And is it for our benefit, or is it, just to cover up something they don't want the public to know? Is the guy on the
Maybe
run?
maybe that's enjoy the show.
Yeah,
Get more popcorn.
literally. Yeah.
Another thing Scott said, Hillary was executed at Gitmo, 12/31/2017. SG has talked about that on his shows too. And she showed up at the inauguration, 6 inches shorter than Bill, um, the fake inauguration in 2020.
In 2020, the
Yeah,
Biden thing. Yeah.
yeah. And he said Biden was dealt with in 2019. Um, all I know is I haven't seen the real one since before 2017, pretty much during the Obama administration. But when the judge advocate general showed up behind Trump in 2017, that pretty much showed me that that this has been a military operation um, before he was inaugurated. So maybe that was handled. What else?
Yeah, I don't know if it's, how it appeared real to me. We do have a lot of fake stuff going around, but I know back this was before a lot of the programs and stuff were out that was able to mask stuff and fake stuff and all this AI. But there was a video of, I thought it was Biden's niece, and she seemed to be upset, and she had recorded herself, on one of the social media platforms saying that guy is not her uncle,
Yeah,
and
I
that,
remember that.
yeah, and that she was kind of tired of it, and wanted to say it out loud, and that it was, he's been dead for some time. The family wasn't, wanting to say that or admit it or whatever because of his political background or whatever. But a lot of that seems, I don't know if it's still out there, probably not, but a lot of people seem to forget that kind of stuff too. So it's like there's stuff showing that things aren't right, but um, I don't know, man.
Yeah, you know, and when I talk to people about this, some people are open to it, some people aren't. They're not. I'm going to share the screen here.
Yeah, that was back in the masking days.
Yes, sir.
He's got his compliance mask on.
All right, peeps. So this is the video of in 2020 of the Commander General of the National Guard in DC telling everyone that we are transitioning to a peaceful military power.
General William Walker, the commanding general of the District of Columbia National Guard. Major, thank you for joining us this morning. Can you start out by saying what the current threat level is? Do you have what you need in place to counter it?
Good morning, sir. I do believe we have everything. If I can first say happy holiday for Dr. Martin Luther King, and please allow me to say how proud I am of the almost 25,000 National Guardsmen who have come in from all 50 states and territories to help support the Secret Service and the police departments with a peaceful transition of military power. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And there you go.
Territories to help support the Secret Service and the police departments with a peaceful transition of military power. Good morning.
And there you go. National Guard out of their states. And that was in 2020.
And so from some of, Derek Johnson's things, who's a country music singer and also a ex-military guy who we've talked about before, his uncoverings and stuff show that by law, the only person that do can nationalize or federalize the National Guard is the President of the United States, right? So,
Yes, sir.
yeah, so that I mean right there, and that tells you that there's something different going on with that. Also, like, back then everybody, was unsure of why there was fencing and things, but it starts to make a little bit more sense now that if we have fencing around federal buildings and installations because there was some sort of uh unnatural type of event or unnatural, perhaps a coup or some kind of a military thing going on that we weren't being told, but they spent a lot of money on fencing around all the buildings, and
Well,
no one really
remember
talked about that.
remember the barbed wire faced in, not out
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
in 2020. So a lot of people didn't catch that. And uh,
And the fact that, and I always say it too, is that DC is not part of the United States, and
no,
documents and the law and all the federal regulations, it's purposely set up as a separate entity. So then it's
yeah,
almost
it
like
was
they were.
1871, the Organic Act of 1871 set it up. And then I haven't been able to read it yet. I always thought it was the Organic Act of 1871 that created the corporation too. But according to Derek Johnson, it was the Organic Act of 1878 that did that. So I haven't had a chance to verify or read that, but it was in the 1870s that all that happened, and then 1913 with the
Yeah,
Federal Reserve,
1913.
and
Yep. Sealed
so
everything, made it even worse than it is. But for it being not part of the United States, I can't understand how are you the capital of a country when you're not even the country?
yeah, exactly.
It baffles me, and nobody seems to think like that.
Well, it's not anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
a ghost town.
yeah, yeah. That's
You know,
another thing. Yeah, it's
nobody seems to want to go back to work. So um,
yeah, work from home.
maybe they're scared to go to work, get arrested.
Yeah. Yeah, that not being part of the country could play in a benefit for two different sides. Go back there and not have the safety of the laws we have and get arrested. I don't
Exactly.
know.
So we played that video. What else did they talk about? IRS going away. We know that. I mean, just today, Trump tweeted that he's going to have an office of the External Revenue Service. Did you see that?
I did not, but I will add, I've been meaning to tell you this. I was looking around on Indeed months ago for jobs in Central Texas, and the the Treasury Department is listed in Central Texas, and they were hiring some type of administrators at that time, which knowing what kind of we were thinking on stuff we heard in the past, that just kind of concreted that to me that there is something going on where they're opening other treasury branches, or maybe the headquarters is being moved to Texas. I
Yeah.
don't know, but and I went back recently to see if it was still there, and it's gone now. So it's either closed out or they've got who they need or whatever. But yeah, so what you're saying, I've seen personally some things that add up to that. What was
Yeah.
he saying?
Derek Johnson reported that the Treasury was going to be in Texas probably a year ago,
Mhm.
and then Scott McKay just talked about it on that latest podcast. He also said it was going to be split between Texas and Reno. Something's going on in Reno. That's where I guess the gold was being flown into. Um,
Yeah, back when they took it from the Vatican and everywhere else with the 600 and something
650
cargo
plane
planes.
loads.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was clearly stuff going on with that. And we don't know what exactly is going on because we're on the outside looking in, but we do have we can all piece stuff together and figure it out, which is what's been going on with alternative media here for a long time. And so there is a lot of positive things it seems going on amidst all the negative stuff.
So he did say also, and I guess we should say this is all speculation. I mean, it's stuff that you and I have followed, and a lot of other people have followed for a long time. But he did say
Right.
that the White House has been shut down since 2020 or 2021, and I think a lot of people may have, if they watch that video, they may take that um, out of context because they say, well, I can go there. I have friends that have gone to the White House in the last few years, and they're like, well, there's stuff going on there. That doesn't mean that it's not shut down. It just means that it's a movie prop, that things are happening, but it's just not happening in Atlanta or in California anymore. If you remember, um, I don't even know if you go back on YouTube and watch any of this stuff, but in 2021, do you remember there was pictures of the Oval Office, and you'd have like Ford Explorers driving by in the background,
Yeah, yeah, just
and
right out the
strange
window. Yeah.
right out the window, and just weird shit happening. And the curtains were different, things were different, and that was right after the plaques were taken off the podiums. So when he said that it's been shut down, it really has been shut down because it was dark for a while, and then all of a sudden it was okay. It was lit back up, and I think that's when they started using it as a movie proper or whatnot, whatever they're doing. But everybody's involved in this. Everybody is
Yeah.
involved. Uh, like I said, Maria Bartiromo was talking to Trump, and she was talking about Gavin Newsom being central casting. Trump was on Joe Rogan, and he literally talked about flying into Afghanistan, and all the generals were central casting. So this
Yeah.
has been going on for a long, long time, and it's frustrating for people like us who see it and have to live with it. I think that's the most painful part is the people that have seen it and have been awake to it and have to live through it and endure
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. And I mean, to get to the belief system in the beginning was hard anyways to realize that this stuff is possible and it could be happening, and then to see some of the confirmations and things and that we've seen over the years and learn stuff before they happen and then watch it play out in reality, if you want to call it that.
yeah.
That's been rough for all of us. And it's, a lot of people ask that are just catching on now, like, well, how did you like, why would you think any of this stuff is real, and how could you even begin to believe it? And it's like, well, you see it, you get, it's almost like a movie, right? You watch a film and you see certain actions take place and you're like, wow, that was a cool movie, or man, that's a scary movie. But then you start seeing that in your reality, it's the exact same thing they said was going to happen, or the exact same things that you put together in your mind in the puzzle. And that's what got a lot of people to where we're at. And now to the point where we're calling out, and not specifically myself or maybe you, but others that are more connected to or whatever, they're calling out stuff before they happen, and as they're happening, and we're seeing through it, like the tax and the fog and the different things, because we know everything that is possible now. And another thing I got, someone was saying is like, well, your mind has got to be like, it's like, how are you that dark? It's not a dark thing, and it's not that. And I don't mean to speak for you, but it's probably true for you. Is like we have to, because it's what reality is showing us. It's some of this stuff, it's like, no, we don't want any of this stuff to be like that, but we got to be aware of it in order to bring light to it and then in order to change it. So who's going to do that? If, obviously the people we put in charge originally are the ones that are not helping us. So that's just my soapbox on that, I guess.
Well, just so people understand, I mean, I woke up, God, what was it, 2017 when you came out and we kind of started talking and we're like, damn, we're both on the same page.
Yeah, I think it was 18. Yeah.
18, and one of the guys I was working with, um, I always knew there was something wrong. I just could never put my finger on it. And this is just a little background for people who may have not heard this before. Um, I was working with a guy and I was bitching about taxes and he's like don't pay him. I'm like, well, you have to pay him. And he said, no, you don't have to pay him. It's all fake. It's all bullshit. It's monopoly money. And that is literally what jolted me out of, I guess you'd call it the matrix, the sleep. And that's what sent me down that first road. And I'm thankful that that was the first. It was before all the rest of the shit happened, so I could kind of be awake and run, I guess, run for the exit. and
Yeah.
then uh, and then met you, and you literally, you're like, yeah, I've known that for years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was
I was
great
like,
because
I
yeah,
was
you
like,
were like the
finally,
first.
someone else
Exactly.
who's known it because I just found out.
That's how I felt too, man. I'm like, what? Like somebody else actually knows what I'm talking about? Because you in the beginning days like that, you didn't really talk about it or whatever. It was stuff you formulated in your mind, and you just like, oh, I know it, but nobody else does. And then I think I can't remember, you had mentioned something, yeah, and I was like, yeah, and then you were like,
It
what?
was taxes. Everything back then was
It
taxes.
was, it was.
I told these guys were talking about taxes. I was like, don't pay them.
Yep, yep. Send a letter, let them know who you are, and let
And
them.
I don't think I'd done anything. at that point. I was still scared to to um to get off the tax rolls.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, those were fun times. I miss those.
Yeah, we did. Had a lot of fun, and the world wasn't as crazy as it is today, but as we are hearing from others and as we know that good days are to come. So
Yeah,
um,
that at that time it was just the Me Too movement where everybody was getting hammered for or Hollywood was getting hammered. Well, I guess
yeah.
Hollywood's getting hammered again right now.
Yeah, imagine that. And I'm sure there's a lot of evidence in a lot of them homes, but
Yeah.
that's a different story, I guess.
Um, so I guess the last thing I really had notes on, unless you have other notes you want to talk about, was what Scott was talking about was Nassar was signed under Clinton, but it was signed at gunpoint.
I
And
heard that a while ago. Yeah.
I've heard that for a long time now. And 9/11 was a result of I don't want to call it a distraction, but that was their form of distraction and destruction to get us away from that. So it wasn't implemented. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you may have seen my interview with Charles Key, who was the Oklahoma state representative who was there during the Oklahoma City bombing, and he has even connected. Finally, he's comfortable enough to come out and connect. A lot of this stuff that happened in the 90s into the 2000s up to 9/11 is all connected, and it's all connected based on cover-ups, based on different different events that they wanted to try to keep from the public. So he didn't necessarily go into the depth that we are going into with it, but it would at least prove that we're on the right track. And I think, and I did hear that too, that 9/11 was and the specific reason I believe it is because of Building 7. Building
Yeah.
7, yeah, it came down and it wasn't even part of the two towers, and it came down in demolition style, and any demolition expert will tell you that was a demolition. The same with the two buildings too. But um yeah, so I think they were either maybe covering up things they had done in the past that may have been evidence in that building, or what was the other thing? They said that that was the building that they were going to release the funds, or that was kind of like one of the central hubs to get the process going of restoring the financial.
That's where the records were for Nassar Jassar, and I believe that is where the records were held for the the money, the 2 point, what was it, 2.3 or 2.6 trillion dollars that was missing that day.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was tons and tons of money that came up missing that evening right before or something like
Yeah.
that when they did their audit. But they always are missing money. Every year when they do that audit, they always fail it. But I think that year specifically there was some astronomical additional amount of money that had went missing.
And then the Pentagon, the specific part of the Pentagon that got hit was the Office of Naval Intelligence.
That's right. That's right.
And that's where a lot of the records were held too. So, but I don't know. Hopefully that all gets released soon with disclosure. I can't imagine we've gone through the last 8 or 9 years and they don't disclose at some point to the public what's really going on, what we've been talking about
Yeah.
for what, 9 years now.
Yeah, it's been a long ass time. I think and I don't I'm getting more pessimistic when it comes to what's going to be coming out, because it seems like it's just there's nothing angling towards any of it being released. It's almost like it's going to be like based on each individual. It will be out there to find, like we have done, and like,
Yeah.
the stuff we follow and the things that we do on our podcasts, but it's going to be up to them. And there might be, even with like the UFO thing and stuff, they've come out. They meaning the United States government officials, Mexican government officials, Canadian government officials, and they've said there are off-world beings. There are off-world technology that is present here, and it's just like an oversight because it comes out on C-SPAN, it comes out, in a congressional hearing or something, and like some people see it, and it's like the ones that see it are like us who already know or thought that. So we're just like, yeah, what we know, and it's like
Whatever.
whatever, no, and then the rest of the people just they don't pay attention or whatever. But hopefully there comes a point, and I don't know how that will come about, but that would have been a nice thing to ask SG when he was on earlier is what at what point now, knowing what we know and seeing how things are panning out, how are we going to come together? Because there is two things I guess I can mention, and then I don't have anything else either, but uh, I wish I could bring it up. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was a former military analyst who had a security clearance, and it had to do with there was a project at Area 51, or I think it was S7 or whatever it is, where
You
it's
talking about
called
Bob?
no, not Bob Lazar. This was a some other kind of analyst that was involved in or I don't know if he's involved, but he had something to do with Project Looking Glass. And he was saying that basically, no matter what, and this is what a lot of people were upset that are on the side who want, globalization and a one world kind of deal and all that. The thing he said is that they got frustrated because no matter what angle is played, whatever card is dealt, it always comes down to one singular um, timeline or one singular
Yeah.
future, and that is us being prosperous and abundant and being able to get out of this hidden slavery that the whole United States and the world has been in under controllers who have profited for themselves and the few, and has made it really really hard to get to that level for anybody that doesn't play the game the way that they've designed it. So I've always thought that in the back of my mind too, is like that, no matter what happens, it might take longer, might be shorter, whatever. Eventually, we're going to the singularity, you can call it, to where that's the outcome that they see. And there's only a few. I mean, he even mentioned there's a few things that could go wrong, but it's like a snowball rolling down a hill, and it's halfway down the mountain now, and it's the size of two city buildings or two buses or whatever. It's
Yeah.
really hard for that to break up. It could break up, I guess, but it would take something stronger and bigger than it to break up. And right now, it's the biggest thing rolling down the hill. So, um, kind of thing. I don't know. Did you hear anything about that, or you know who I'm talking about?
No, no. The only thing I had heard is what I had said a minute ago, and I I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I could share the name, but this was, you see so much stuff and you read and watch and take in so much information. You can only take so many notes, and then those get lost in phones and notepads and things. So you
Yeah, I got
forget
so
it.
many notepads, and I literally was last night was watching Kim Clement,
Oh man,
and he was
as
talking
was
about
I. That's crazy. Swear.
yeah, and he was talking about, and this was 2010, and he was talking about what's going on now, and you lose track of all the stuff that you've watched. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna remember that one, and then 2 days later, it's like you forget where
Yeah.
it's at or what you were watching. So
Yep. Yep. And then the only other thing I was going to mention is I've heard that, and I don't watch the news so very often, but I heard that Trump was convicted in of some thing, and now he's a felon, and that he's going to be the first felon president of the United States. And I didn't know if you had heard that, or if you have any reaction to like what you think's going to become of that, being charged with
no,
some type of fraud or some type of banking thing or something.
the only thing I had heard is I think it's Merchant, Judge Merchant, um, sentenced him to, I don't remember what they called it, but essentially it's the only thing he could do, and it just kind of wiped everything. It just kind of left everything the way it was. So yeah, I guess you could say he's the first felon president, but if they're trying to charge him under the corporation, which doesn't exist anymore, and you and I have literally covered that, we've shown the corporation that was opened after. I think it was the White House Inc.
Yeah.
Showing Joe Biden was a person of service, but even that, Joe Biden is a Manchurian candidate. As far as I can tell, he's been gone since, like we talked about, he's been gone since before 2017. So
Yeah.
I think it's just all bullshit. It's all bullshit, and at some point, people will see that this was just a show um, to wake up people. And what they say, 3 to 6% will never wake up.
Yeah.
I have a few of those people around me on my Facebook that are still. One of them today had a picture of Trump. Uh, his picture was on a bowl in a china shop, breaking all the china, and said, "Oh, Trump's gonna sign 100 executive orders on day one." It's like,
Well, Biden supposedly signed the same his first day, right? That's what they
yeah,
said then. Yeah.
and these people they still believe it. They still don't see it. Yeah. And I've put up side by side pictures of the old Biden, the new Biden, um, and the old side by sides of literally Mark Zuckerberg side by sides now, and people just it, it, 3 to 6%, maybe 10% are just never going to wake up. They're going to see it, and
Yeah.
it's just going to register. But yeah, oh yeah, that's normal. So
Well, let me
I don't
share
know.
this last thing here. I want to share this video. I haven't watched this yet. But I wanted to share it. It's about Trump being the first convicted felon president, and see if
Roll the clip.
yeah, if we can.
A New York judge officially sentenced the president-elect for his business fraud conviction. He received no punishment, but plans to appeal. Rebecca Castor reports.
For the first time in U.S. history, a convicted felon will sit in the Oval Office come January 20th. After a 2-month trial last spring, Judge Juan Merchan sentenced Donald Trump to an unconditional discharge, meaning no jail time, no fine, or probation.
This court has determined that the only lawful sentence that permits entry of a judgment of conviction without encroaching upon the highest office in the land is an unconditional discharge.
The president-elect, alongside his attorney, appeared in court virtually from Mar-a-Lago. Trump did not testify during the trial, so this was his first opportunity to confront prosecutors and the judge in court.
This has been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to exclaim that I was treated very, very unfairly.
Trump insists he did nothing wrong, but a New York jury found him guilty on 34 counts of filing false business records.
So,
yeah. Did they just throw? Literally, they just showed 3 different Trumps.
Yeah.
In that clip. Did you see that?
I didn't notice it, but I don't deny that it's possibly true, man. They're just jumping out there, but and she said the word lawfare, and I just brought on my last episode. I had a constable from PA who's having lawfare thrown at him, and he even says in there, "I'm not the first, person trying to fight these injustices and stuff, and get word out of the actual factual truth of our country and things that has lawfare thrown at them." And that's exactly what they do. And they throw laws at you. They throw everything they can at you to get something to stick. And then at some point, even if you're not, they hope you're financially drained, but at some point, even if you're not financially drained from it, you have to end up taking some kind of a deal because you just want to move on with your life. And I think that's what happened. And just the last thing I would mention, because I know I still hear it a lot, that people think Trump is a narcissist, and people think that he has issues, mentally and things like that. Well, I'm not a psychologist or whatever. I can't tell you if that's true or not. I do know that it's pretty rough when you get judged based on stuff that you can't handle. So let's go with the fact, let's say he is a narcissist. That doesn't make him a bad person, a terrible person. People that have mental things can do good things in the world still. There are shortcomings that maybe, and I'm saying if he is, there has actually been psychiatrists that have come out and said they've run analysis on him. I think what's the big one now that he's going around? Um, Peterson, Jordan Peterson. Sorry. Jordan Peterson has even been out there and said that, you know, he doesn't see enough narcissistic tendencies in Donald Trump to classify him as a narcissist, that he may have a tendency or two, but one thing that narcissists have that Trump does not is they are uncaring, and they have no part of their brain that is able to have empathy and have understanding of other people's points of views and other people's things. And he does. No matter what you see on TV, you may think not, because you've been told that he doesn't. But if you read his books, if you get into his mind a little bit, if you see what he's done for the African American community, what he's done for the Hispanic community, what he's done for everyone else, and there's people in those communities that can vouch for that, and that's why he has a huge Hispanic following and things like that, is because so that's not true. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, because I hear that a lot from people that and the other thing I wanted to get across in our episode here, since SG had to hop off and things, and we're trying to close out this episode, is that basically we're not looking at, it's not Trump. That is not what this is. Everybody wants to say that, and there might be some people that see an idol and they attach to the idol, and it's all about the idol. I mean, you see that with Taylor Swift fans and all these other people that just they're fanatics. It's cult-like. It's actually cult-like behavior. But from what I know, and from the people like you and everybody else that we've associated with, that we're in a movement, we're in a mindset of freedom, of individuality, of being able to become whatever it is you want to become, no matter what age you are, and not be held down by some system that tells you that you don't have the qualifications, or you don't know the right people, or you haven't done these sacrifices or ceremonies or whatever the hell it is to get where you're at. So it's not about Donald Trump. He's just the person in that position that had the balls enough to be put out as the face of this, and to allow everything that's gone on to go on so we can get where we're at. And I think he's actually taken a big sacrifice in doing that, because no matter what happens going forward, he's always going to have a face that is vilified. He's always going to have a face that is somebody's going to have something to say, whether good or bad. There's no privacy at all ever again for him or his family or his grandkids or anything. So that's all I have to say about that. What do you think?
This whole movement's been about waking people up. So the only person that's going to save you is you.
That's right. That's right.
And if you're waiting for someone to save you, get in line.
We can help, right? We help each other out, but we can't do more than that. You got to get on board yourself first.
Yes, sir.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you bringing me on, Echo, and glad we got to interview SG. It sucks he had to dip out a little early there, but I think we got some good information from him, and we'll have to maybe get him back once again.
Definitely. Hope so.
All right, man. Well, it was good talking to you, and we'll do that.
That was good, brother.
Do you like All Aware Podcast with Nathan Roshawn and want to keep up with new episodes? Like and subscribe on these popular platforms: youtube.com/allawarepodcast, rumble.com/allawarepodcast, facebook.com/allawarepodcast, x.com/allawareshow, podcast.apple.com/allawarepodcast, and anywhere else you watch or listen to alternative media. For more information about the show, visit us online at allawarepodcast.com.